Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope all of you are able to see me. I'll just start sharing my screen and I'll just talk about what the session is about for the first 5 minutes, and then we'll get going with the session. So I'm also logged in from another device on my phone. So I should be able to see your chats as well. So that is something that I'll be keeping an eye on throughout the session. And hopefully there shouldn't be a lot of questions because we are going to look at all the sets that we are going to solve in a detailed manner. So that should help you in terms of understanding what exactly it takes to solve an entire set, right, at the CAT. So that is the whole agenda. So I'll just explain what is it that we are going to do today, and then I will start sharing my screen till the time people join, and then I'll start sharing my screen, and then we will go about the session, right? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cover a bit about how exactly to look at the DILR section and the CAT, right? Because it is something that a lot of people find confusing, and a lot of people are indeed scared of the section. And that is there for a very simple reason, right? So the most important reason, or the most obvious thing why people are scared of the DILR section, is purely because there's a lot of uncertainty that exists. So in case of VARC, you know more or less that there are 4 RCs that are going to appear, and mostly you can also keep an account of the various topics from where your RCs can appear. So even today, if you ask me what all topics are there that should be kept in mind to tackle the RCs, I'll most probably say there are some topics on polity, let's say, for example. So democracy, capitalism, socialism, communism, and all those things. So maybe there could be a passage on one of these topics. There could be a passage on history. Now, anything related to history, be it the evolution of language, for example, or be it in the form of how maps are prepared and all those things. There will be, or there might be, most probably one passage that is based on society, right? So how exactly do people react? How does the societal psychology work? So those kind of things might be covered in one of the passages, right? So there was one nice passage on how people have started going to malls and how they have stopped meeting each other except when they see other people at malls and so on. So those kind of things can be from where the passage can appear. There could be passages on biology, or history, or evolution, for that matter, right? So I have a fair idea of what to expect come the VARC section, and I can be mentally prepared for it, right? So if I just start noting down topics as well, I can note down maybe 10 topics, and out of those 10 topics, I can be pretty sure that at least 2 or 3 topics will appear at the RCs at the CAT, right? So that is something that I can be certain about. In terms of quant, more or less, it is assumed that we are going to get 40%, 45% of the test from arithmetic. So roughly 8, 9, 10 questions from arithmetic and so on. And of course, algebra another 20, 25%, geometry another 20, 25%, and so on. So all those things we can predict more or less, right? But in terms of DILR, if I ask you today what all can appear at the DILR, maybe you will be able to say that, okay, there is a data interpretation set that might appear. There is an arrangement set that might appear. You might get a table based set. You might get a bar graph. You might get a line chart and so on. But the point is, you can have a bar graph which can be represented as a line chart, which can be represented as a table, which can be represented as a caselet as well, right? So that is basically what it might take the shape of. So we don't really know as to from where you are going to get a particular set, right? If you look at the past 4, 5, 6 year CAT papers which are available in the public domain, you will see that every year they have managed to surprise us, right? And even as an exercise, because I was collating some of the nice sets that we had over the last 4 years, it was very interesting, right? So there were a lot of sets out of which I had to select 4. So that is what we are going to do today. We are going to solve 4 sets, one from each year. So that is what the theme is. So I've taken one set from CAT 22, 21, 20, and 19. And maybe I'll try to talk about what exactly went into a particular set. For the first 3, 4 minutes, I'll talk about what exactly was the thought process when someone would have been attempting a particular set. Why should you have attempted that particular set? And more or less, again, the entire categorization of the set being easy, moderate, difficult. So we will have a look at those things. And by the end of the session, I think you should be slightly more sorted in terms of figuring out which set to pick, because that is the more important part. Actually, solving is the secondary bit. but trying to figure out which set to select and which set to actually solve, invest time in. So that is basically the more important decision that you need to make, right? So that is the whole idea of the session. I'll just start sharing my screen. I have prepared a short presentation for this one. It's not a presentation. It is more or less sets that I have, and I have kept one slide for us to figure out as to what exactly is it that should be taken care of come the LRDI section. So I'll just share my screen, and yes, so I hope the screen is visible now. And we'll start solving the session. I'll just start it on my phone as well so that I know what exactly is it that you're talking about. Yeah, a lot of comments on the shirt, but I just pulled out something and I just put it on there for the session. So that's about it. There is nothing more to it. So yeah, that is mostly about what I'm doing. Yeah, just give me a second. I'll just look at the session and I'll just see what the comments are like. Yeah, so we are live now. We have, yeah, I'm so sorry. All right, yeah, so this should be good. Okay, so we are getting some questions already. Yeah, when will you solve 2022 set? Haven't attempted those papers yet. Don't want any spoilers. Arjun, 2022 is at the very end. So the last set is CAT 2022. So maybe once we are done with 3 sets, you can log out, and then once you are done, you can have a look at the recording of the session. Yes, so today's session we are going to do, and I'll be taking you through the session. I'm the program director for CAT at IMS. I also do a bit of dabbling in quant and LRDI sessions specifically. So DILR, I thought that I'll do it because I am very interested in puzzles, solving puzzles and solving these DILR sets and so on. It gives me a lot of happiness, right, to be able to crack a puzzle. So I'm a problem solver at heart, and that is why I believe that this session will be a fun session. So I tried to pick some sets that are like decently difficult, not very easy, not very difficult. That's what the mix is, and of course, if the response to the session is well, then we might do another of these kind of sessions. So from DILR, right? So the first thing that you need to do in terms of DILR is to set realistic targets, right? A lot of us set targets which are based on hearsay. A lot of you might have heard people solving 3 sets, 4 sets, and might have set those kind of targets, right? But to be very honest with you, you have to set realistic targets. In case of, let's say, mentors who are taking the test, right? We will always go for 4 sets, right? Because the whole idea is to see what all questions are there, what all sets are there, where exactly was the bottleneck, why was it difficult. So it's mostly from an analysis perspective, right? I don't go to get X percentile at the CAT. I just go there, I solve questions, and then whatever happens, happens, right? But in your case, you have to go with a plan in mind. What you have to do is you have to set a realistic target that, okay, the entire season, I was able to solve 1 set out of 4 consistently. In an easier section, I could solve 2 sets. In a very easy section, maybe 3 sets. But mostly, I was able to solve 1 set out of 4. So that is what I have been doing my entire season. Now, there is no need to become overtly optimistic come the day of the CAT. Right? So you have to set realistic targets. We will have a detailed video on this as well, as to how many sets should you go for a certain percentile, and what exactly should be your strategy at the DILR section in particular, and overall in terms of the RC, VA, and the quant part as well, right? But you have to set realistic targets. So if you are planning to solve only 1 set, that gives you a lot of mental peace, right? If you go into the test assuming that you're going to be able to solve 2 or 3 sets, you might feel a bit overwhelmed after the first 5 or 10 minutes, right? Because once the timer hits the 20s mark, psychologically, that is when people start panicking. Till 30, it's fine, because you are sort of on the higher side. But as soon as the timer shows 29:53, 29:52, and so on, panic sets in, and that is basically where a lot of people will end up making the wrong choice in terms of which set to solve and how fast to solve a particular set. So set realistic targets. If you are someone who is going to solve 1 set, maybe look at that 1 easy set that you are going to solve and a couple of questions from here and there. So that is basically what your strategy should be. If you are someone who regards DILR as their strength, then maybe go ahead and try to solve those 2 or 3 sets. Because to give you a benchmark, last year, people who would have solved 2 sets completely correctly, 10 questions, 30 marks, would have scored a 99 percentile at the section. And if it were, let's say, a difficult slot, so I took it in the first slot, and my score got scaled up. So my raw score was 33 last year, I believe. It got scaled up to 39 point something. So it was a jump by 6 marks, right? And that took my percentile to somewhere around 99.9-ish, I believe, if I'm not correct, not wrong, 99.8 or 99.9, not sure. But it was somewhere around that range, right? So 2 sets completely, if you manage to solve without guessing things here and there, you should be fine. So set realistic targets and try to achieve them first. If you have time left, maybe 5-10 minutes if you have, you can go and look at the third set or the second set. But otherwise, don't worry too much about the number of attempts that you are going to make. Second thing, you have to select your sets well. So one thing that we are going to do today is we are trying to see how exactly to select sets. That is one thing that we will be able to look at after this session. So that you should have a fair idea of what is it that people look at, or what is it that toppers look at when it comes to selecting sets and figuring out which ones are the ones that you need to do during the test. Right. The third thing, this is very important. It is mostly from a psychological standpoint. So again, you would have seen a lot of these sets at the CAT, which are possibilities based, meaning the questions will be theta mostly, and the questions will be somewhere along the lines of what is the maximum possible number of flights that would be needed to connect all the cities, what is the minimum possible employees that you need to have to service 5 people at once, what is the maximum number of trains that are required to service a route, and so on, right? So those kind of questions are very frequently appearing at the CAT. And the good thing about these things is you will be able to solve these sets very quickly, right? They will be very easy to solve. But then again, you will not know whether your answers are right or wrong. So let's say your answer is 180. There will be a 45 in the options. There will be a 90 among the options. There will be a 360 among the options in most probabilities, and at 180. And you are not sure whether 180 is indeed the correct answer or not, right? So beware of low accuracy sets. You will not really, or I generally go into these sets with an assumption that I'm going to get a 50% accuracy at these sets, right? So there are 5 questions. Mostly I'm going to get 2 correct, 3 wrong, or 3 correct, 2 wrong. So that is my assumption, or that is my expectation when I get into these sets. So these sets are not going to be the ones which will build my score unless I'm extremely sure of the answers, unless I've spent a lot of time on these sets, right? These sets will be the ones where I'm going to get a +6, +7 kind of a bonus, and I'll focus my energies on maybe 1 or 2 other sets. So that is how I look at these sets. If you get into the exam and solve only one set, which is a possibilities based set, chances are very high that you might be disappointed when the official key comes out, right? Because you would have spent your entire energy solving one set, which was a possibilities based set where your accuracy was expected to be on the lower side. You attempted only 5 questions or 7 questions overall, and out of the 5 questions in the set, if you manage to get 2 or 3 wrong, your score has fallen down by a lot, and now you're looking at a 50-60 kind of a percentage. Okay, so don't get stuck on these low accuracy wale sets. Make sure that you are giving them the amount of time that they deserve, right? Because low accuracy sets will not be expected to calculate an entire table, or you will not be able to draw an entire chart or something. Everything will be possibilities, right? So make sure that you are not spending a lot of time on these sets and are spending more time on sets that have a lot of certainty. Then don't leave sets because of prejudices. I wanted to take some DI sets today, but I didn't, because I'm sure a lot of you would have seen a lot of these sets, and by now I'm sure you would have realized that the most cryptic looking set is generally the easiest set at the DILR section. So don't leave sets because you're not good at data interpretation. Don't leave a set because you're not good at chess. Don't leave a set because you're not good at tournaments. At least read the set and see what happens, right? Because if you have a prejudice against certain question types, chances are very high that you are looking at only one set to be solved correctly, or 1.5 set to be solved correctly. Now, in that kind of a scenario, you cannot let go of an easy set, right? I saw someone asking the comment section whether they can leave Venn diagrams, right? Please don't leave Venn diagrams. You still have 1 month to go, more or less. Try to solve at least the 3-factor and 4-factor Venn diagrams. I don't think it will take more than a day or two to master Venn diagrams, at least the basic question types. I'm not talking about maxima, minima. At least basic question types to kar lena. 3-factor, 4-factor, so absolutely you should do, because it has been appearing at the CAT more frequently than other question types, right? So make sure that you're doing that. Do not leave a set because you don't like the set. Okay? Leave the set because it deserves to be left out. Then hunt for value. So this has got mostly to do with those single questions that are a part of many sets. So in some sets, you will figure out that once you have used maybe 25% of the information that would have been given to you, you will still be able to answer 1 or 2 questions, right? So that is basically where you have to hunt for value. So wherever you get those value questions, wherein minimal effort is going to give you +3, look at those sets, try to reach that point wherein you are going to be able to answer 1 or 2 questions. It's okay to not solve the entire set. Just look at these question types wherein you will get those value, or you'll get that value. Guess theta's intelligently. So I'll show the first set I'm going to show today was something which I'm personally very disappointed about at the actual CAT. So I'll tell you the story. But guess theta's intelligently and hedge your position. So when I say hedge your positions, it basically means that, let's say for example, you have thought of 2 different possibilities for a set. Okay. You are saying that A can have 5 coins or A can have 6 coins. Let's say these are the 2 possibilities that you have. Now on the basis of that, B can have either 3 coins or 2 coins. Let's say दोनों का मिला के 8 coins होने वाला है. Some random scenario I am considering. Let's say if A has 5 coins, B has 3 coins, or A has 6 coins, B has 2 coins. There is one question which asks you how many coins does A have, and second question asks you how many coins does B have. ठीक है? And I have only figured these things out. 5-3 होगा या 6-2 होगा. Now what will you mark as your answer? Will you mark 5-3 as your answer, or 6-2 as your answer, or 5-2 as your answer, or 6-3 as your answer? Right? I will always go for hedging my positions. Why will I do that? Because I'm not sure of what is going to happen. Worst case, what will happen? I'll get 3 marks now. And if both the questions have options, I'll get +3 -1. Chalo 2 to mil raha hai bonus. So that prisoner's dilemma ke andar, I will always go for that situation that gives me some value. Right? That's what I meant when I said hunt for value. If there are 2 questions which are dependent on each other and there are 2 possible outcomes, I would mark different outcomes for both the answers. So one answer I will mark as 6, one answer I will mark as 3. Agar 5-3 wala case right tha, I'm getting marks for this answer. Agar 6-2 wala case right tha, I'm getting marks for this answer. Either way, I'm getting 2 marks or 3 marks for sure. But if I mark 5-3, on a good day I might get 6 points, on a bad day I might get 0 or -2. So again, I'm not looking at these questions to build my score. I'm looking at these just to get that value that I'm talking about, right? So extra 2 marks here and there is going to be gold dust when it comes to the DILR section, right? So that was more or less what I had in terms of do's and don'ts. Some of you have asked some questions. So of course, this is not a DILR discussion session where we'll be discussing the concepts that are there in terms of DILR or the strategy that is there. We will have a separate thing for that as well. I'll try to take as many questions as I can, but overall we'll be focusing more on solving the questions that are right. So what I will do is I will show you the question that I have selected for today's session. I'm sure you will be able to find those questions easily online as well. I should have attached a document or something. I haven't done it, but in the recording, I will put the document on as a drive link. So you can try those sets on that Google Doc, and then you can have a look at the solution that will follow. So that is one thing that people who are going to watch the recording can keep in mind. Okay, so I'll just show you the question. What I will do is I'll discuss that question for 2, 3, 4 minutes as to what happened when I saw the question for the first time. Some of these questions have appeared at my slot. Mostly they haven't. But one set I think had appeared in the slot that I had taken the CAT, the first one, and the others I have taken from the slots that I did not take the CAT. Okay, so I'll talk about what the set looked like, what are things to keep in mind, why should you have solved the set, why could you have left the set, and then we will start the solution. So people who want to go ahead and start solving, you can do it then, because once I start solving the set, I'll not stop in between. I'll just explain the entire thing and just focus on what I'm doing. And I'm sure you will be able to understand why exactly we did it the way we did. And in the chat as well, I'm sure that there are some of you who are fairly bright and you can answer some of the questions. So it's okay if you answer a few questions. Try to be nice, be respectful. That is what we expect from the chat. Yeah, the more or less we should be fine. Okay. So I have one set each from CAT 2019, 20, 21, 22. So I have taken one set from each of these tests, 4 sets in total. I think we will be done by 8:15ish. That is what I when I aim to finish the session. So for those of you who are watching the recording, it will probably be a 1 hour 15 minutes kind of a recording if everything goes to plan. Okay. So let's look at the first set that we have here. So this is from CAT 2019 slot 2. Back then CAT used to be conducted in 2 slots. This was a set from my slot, and honestly I was very miffed with myself that I was not able to solve this. In fact, I'll just show you the set. I'll just explain to the set and then I will tell you what happened. So there are 3 pouches, each represented by a filled circle, that are kept in each of the 9 slots in a 3x3 grid. So this is the 3x3 grid that we have. Yeah, this is the 3x3 grid that we have here. And there are these 3 pouches that are kept in each block of the 3x3 grid. Every pouch has a certain number of 1 rupee coins. There are some 1 rupee coins that are there. The minimum and maximum amount of money in rupees among the 3 pouches in each of the 9 slots are given in the table. So this table tells you what is the minimum value of the 1 rupee coins in any of the pouches, and what is the maximum value of the 1 rupee coins in any of the pouches in a particular block. So let's say I'm talking about this one. This is column 1, row 1, and 2 and 4. So what does it mean in this case? The minimum value that any of these pouches contained was 2 rupees, and the maximum value was 4 rupees. So one pouch definitely has 2 rupees in it. One pouch definitely has 4 rupees in each in it. The third pouch could have 2 rupees, 3 rupees, or 4 rupees. We don't know. Similarly, row 2, column 1, 3, 5. One of these pouches will have 3 rupees. One of these pouches will have 5 rupees. The third pouch will have either 3 or 4 or 5. It cannot be less than 3. It cannot be greater than 5. It can be equal to 3 or 5. So they have explained it here. For example, we know that among the 3 pouches in the second column of the first row. So first row, second column, this one. The minimum amount in a pouch is rupees 6 and the maximum amount is 8 rupees. That is what they have told us. 9 pouches in each of the any of the 3 columns as well as in any of the 3 rows. So 3, 3, 3. So we'll make it 9 pouches in any of the rows or columns. And it is known that the average amount of money in rupees kept in the 9 pouches in any column or in any row is an integer. So average of all the coins across the pouches will be an integer. It is also known as the total amount of money kept in the 3 pouches in the first column of the third row is 4 rupees. So first column, column 1, row 3 will basically have 4 rupees cumulatively. That is what is known to us. I'll show you the questions as well. So these are the questions that were there, and all of them were theta. So what is the total amount of money in rupees that in the 3 pouches kept in the first column of the second row? So first column, second row, first column, whatever is the total amount of money that we have to write. How many pouches contain exactly 1 coin? What is the number of slots for which the average amount is an integer? And the number of slots for which the total amount strictly exceeds rupees 10. So that is what has been asked. Fairly straightforward questions, not difficult at all. Given that they are theta questions, I know that every question has exactly one answer. And because every question has exactly one answer, we know that we should be able to solve this set easily. Right? So that is basically the assumption. Now I'll tell you what happened in this case when I saw it for the first time. So I took it in this lot. Fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know, I took it in this lot. And when I saw this set, I was happy because mathematical reasoning is something that I am very comfortable with, honestly. But I misread one small bit of this particular set, right? So in this case, what has been written here, it is known that the average amount of money in rupees, right? Average amount of money in rupees kept in the 9 pouches in any column or any row is an integer. Now, average is an integer. Average of how many things is an integer? That was one thing that I misread nicely. What I did in this case was, instead of figuring out that the total has to be a multiple of 9, I somehow assumed that the total has to be a multiple of 3, because I thought that we are talking about the 3 cells that are there, and that's why the total should be a multiple of 3, because only then will the average be an integer, right? So that is what I thought when I saw this set during the actual test. It was a disaster, honestly speaking. I managed to get something in LRDI, but this was very sad. In fact, when I was coming back from this test, I just called up another mentor who teaches verbal. In fact, I called Abhishek sir. I'm sure if he's watching, he'll be able to relate to this. I called him up and he's like, this was the easiest set of the entire slot, right? And he is of course not an LRDI person, core LRDI person. He still solves puzzles, of course. But he said it was the easiest one, and then I realized what a mistake I had made. So moral of the story: read the data properly that has been given to you, and only then go about and start solving this set. Okay? Because I messed this up big time. But because of the hedging technique that I mentioned, I got some 2 or 3 answers correct. In spite of misreading this set and in spite of making some wild guesses, I still ended up doing well because there are very limited outcomes in this particular set. Okay? So I'll tell you what exactly to do when it comes to judging a set and deciding whether you want to solve it or not. So there are broadly 3 parameters that are there. I'll not get into the details of what those 3 parameters are, but we had done a lot of these kind of sessions for our enrolled students as well. There we had discussed these parameters in depth. So if you are an enrolled student, it will be there on your My IMS channel. You will be able to see this, and even otherwise, I think you will be able to make some sense of this. Okay. So the first parameter is familiarity. The second parameter is the data that is there, and the third parameter is the questions that we are going to see. right? So in terms of familiarity, if a set is extremely familiar to you, you have seen something similar in the past, then you will give it 3 points. Else 2 points, somewhat similar hai. Bilkul similar nahi hai, you haven't seen something like this at all, you will give it 1 point. Okay? Similarly, in terms of the kind of data that has been given to you, if the data is plug-in in nature, so directly you will just take numbers and you will plug it, like the case in this set, right? This 2, 4 is fixed. So out of the 27 pouches that we have the data for 2/3 of them. 18 pouches का data we have in front of us. Okay. Now we have to fill the data of only 9 pouches. उसमें से भी एक pouch का answer we know and one more pouch we know. So largely plugin conditions will say that you are supposed to give a 3 point or 3 pointer to this set. Okay. If there are a lot of these plugin conditions, but there are some conditions that are dependent on each other. So we'll see in subsequent sets, if there is a condition which says that, okay, someone scored more marks than someone else, let's say, then they are dependent conditions. So then I'll give them 2 points. I'll give the set 2 points. If there are very few conditions that are plugin, but there are some plugin conditions, then 1 point. No plugin conditions is 0 points. Okay. So on the basis of conditions, we'll do this. On the basis of questions, we look at the questions, the nature of questions. If they are closed questions meaning they have exactly one answer, then I know that there is exactly one scenario. So if there are closed questions and all of them are closed, I'll give the set 4 points. If 3 questions are closed, one is an if based or additional information based question, I'll give it 3 points. If there are 2 questions that are or 3 questions that are closed which have one answer, and there are another couple of questions that are open, meaning that the questions can be answered after taking into consideration some cases or on the basis of certain conditions, I'll give it 2 points, and 1 point is for sets jahan pe all the questions are open, or 0 points, wherein all the questions are open in nature, wherein for every question there is a new scenario that exists. Okay. So if, then, maximum possible, minimum possible, additional data given, so all those questions will be open questions. Otherwise, direct questions will be closed questions from for which you are expected to give only one answer. Then we will say that they are closed questions. Okay. So that is what it looks like. Now, once you have graded the set on these parameters, you will see which sets to solve, which sets to leave on the basis of their performance on this scale. So if there is a set which is a 9 pointer and 8 pointer, and there is another set which is a 6 pointer or a 5 pointer, definitely you will prioritize the 8 pointer or the 9 pointer, right? That is what you will prioritize, because that is supposed to be an easy set. Now, of course, you can have a method of your own. You can have parameters of your own using which you will figure out whether a set deserves to be solved or not. So that is completely up to you. This is one indicative parameter that we discuss with our students, so that the decision making is based on quantitative terms and not just on the basis of subjectivity or whims and fancies. Okay. So in this case, familiarity wise, this is not exactly a very familiar set, but it is somewhat familiar. You have done these kind of sets wherein you have maxima, minima, and average that you have to do. So manageable set. So I'll give it a 2 point. I'll give this set 2 points on the basis of familiarity. If I'm looking at the kind of data that is given, it is mostly plug-in. It is entirely plug-in, right? All the data has been plugged in and has been given to us. So I'll give it a 3. I'll give it 3 points on the basis of data, and considering all the questions are closed, I will give it 4 points. So indeed, what Abhishek sir said was right, and 2 plus 3 plus 4, this was indeed a 9 pointer, and so it was one of the easier sets that could have been solved that year. Of course, there were 1 or 2 more sets that could have been managed, but this was definitely something that can be considered to be on the easier set. Okay. So now we'll go ahead and start solving this particular set, and then we will see what happens. So there is not a lot of information given to us here. We just have this entire table, maximum, minimum we know, and we know one bit. It is also known that the money, total amount of money kept in 3 pouches in the first column of the third row. So row 3, first column is 4 rupees. So this entire 1 plus 2 plus something will give us 4. So that is the obvious bit. So the third purse will also have 1 rupee. So 1 rupee in one purse, 2 rupees in another purse, and 1 rupee in the third pouch. So it will give us 4 rupees as a part of row 3. So that is one thing that we have. Okay. So this is the first bit that we have got. It has already told us one more bit of information. So that is helpful. You can see one more small thing. So those of you who are like really good at DILR and who have that eye for detail will be able to spot one more obvious thing. And that is this part. If in a particular slot, right, in a particular box, right, there are 3 pouches. The maximum amount in any pouch is 1 rupee. The minimum amount in any pouch is 1 rupee. What can be the amount in the third pouch? Obviously, it has to be 1. Right? So these 2 bits we have already got as soon as we started solving this, and even without looking at that 9th part at all. Okay? Now what I did during the test was I struggled after this a bit, but then I knew that I already have 3 ones here, 2 ones here, 1 1 here, right? So I already have 6 ones in this entire grid. I know that there cannot be any ones here. 6 8 may there cannot be a 1, 2 4 may there cannot be a 1, 3 5 there cannot be a 1, 6 20 2 5 may there can't be a 1. There is only this one bit that is left. And that is where your hedges come into the picture. So in one scenario, I assume that the third pouch is 1 rupee. In the second scenario, I assume that the other pouch, that one pouch has 2 rupees. I think I went for 1 and I answered some questions and I got 2 or 3 out of 4 correct, right? So that is what I did. So although I messed up the set, this was what saved me. So maybe when you get stuck in some set like this, you might also want to think along similar lines and make those assumptions and try to get those bonus marks, right? So that is my solution. Now going ahead and solving this set, as I mentioned, the row or column, whatever we are looking at, right? The average across all the pouches, all the 9 pouches, they had spelled it out. Across all the 9 pouches will be an integer. Okay? So I know that the total of the money that is present across these pouches should be a multiple of 9. So this is very important, right? So the sum of any row or column has to be a multiple of 9. Now this is very important. Okay? Multiple of 9. Now in this case, if you look at the data that we already have, so we already have some data here in this column. We have some data here in this row. So maybe these 2 data points is what we can consider and we can start. So let's say we are looking at column 1 first. We are looking at this column. So 2 plus 4, we already have a 6 here. 5 plus 3, 8. So 6 plus 8, which is 14. 14 plus 4 is 18. So column 1 already has 18 rupees, right? I need it to be a multiple of 9. And there has to be something in the third pouch in row 1, column 1. And there has to be something in the third pouch in row 2, column 1. So I know for sure that the next number has to be either 9 or 18 or 27. So whatever is left should add up to either 9, 18, 27 and so on. But if you look at the maximum possible value that a pouch can contain or amount that a pouch can contain in row 1, column 1 wala box, this box, it is 4. 4 से ऊपर हो ही नहीं सकता, whatever happens. In this case, maximum possible is 5. It cannot go beyond 5, right? So using this bit of information and this bit of information, we know that, let's say I go for 2 plus 3, it is going to give me 5. 2 plus 4, 6. 2 plus 5, 7. There is no point doing all this, right? The only thing that works here is if the sum is 9. And that is possible only in one scenario wherein the third pouch has 4 coins. And in this case, the third pouch has 5 coins. That is the only scenario. Now we have nicely figured out that the total of these 3 is 10. The total of these 3 is 13. The total of these 3 is 4. So cumulatively, it will give us 27 for column 1. I'll just put 27 here for the sake of simplicity. So that is what this looks like. Now again, as I mentioned, let's look at this row. Because now I have 13 here. I already had a 3 here, 1 plus 1 plus 1. I just need to figure out what happens here. And we are sorted, right? So in this case, 13 plus 3 is already 16. If we look at row 2 now, 13 plus 3 is already 16. 16 plus 26 is 42. So if I already have 42 here, I need to make it a multiple of 9. I will either add a 3 to it and make it 45, or I will add a 12 to it and make it 54, or I will add a 21 to it and make it a 63 and so on. Right? I already have 42 here. That is what we have across these 8 pouches. Now if you look at it, in this particular block 620, can I add 3 coins? I can't, right? Because the minimum possible number of coins in this particular block is 6. So 3 is not possible. Can I add 12 coins? Definitely yes, because 6 and 20 ke beech mein you get 12. 12 is between 6 and 20. Can I add 21 coins? Not really. So there is only one solution that exists here, which is 12. So what is the total number of coins in this particular block? 20 plus 12, that is 32, plus 6, that is 38. And in this entire row, if you look at it, it's 13 plus 3, that is 16, plus 38, that is 54. So I'll just write a 54 here for the sake of simplicity. Okay? So this is what we have here. Now again, let's look at another set of blocks that we have, and then again we can figure out as to where exactly is it that we are going. right? So let's look at the second column that we have. Okay, just give me a second. I'll just connect my charger. Yeah, so we're back. So we can look at the second column now. So in this case, if we look at it, 6 plus 8, we already have 14. 14 plus 3, we already have 17. And 17 plus 3, we already have a 20. So if you're looking at column 2, we already have a 20. Now, if I need to make it a multiple of 9, I will need to add either a 7 or a 16 or a 25 and so on. But if you look at the maximum possible value that you have, 8 plus 2, you can only have a 10, right? Meaning that 16, 25, 34 are not possible. So these two will add up to 7. Now, how can I get a 7 by using these two cells? The minimum possible value is 6. So यहाँ से 6 तो लेना ही पड़ेगा कुछ भी करके. And here the minimum possible value is 1. So there is only one way to make a 7. If this part is 6 and this part is 1 again. So 1 to 1, this block will give me 4. 6, 8, 6 will give me 20. Total will be 27 for column 2. Right? Now we have got two blocks. We just have to find the third block. It's going to be very easy. यहाँ पे भी we have two blocks. Third block निकालना है, very easy. Right? So I have 10 here plus 20. So 30 हो गया. And here we have 4 more. So 34 is what we have. I need to make it a multiple of 9. So the next multiple of 9 is 36. So I have to have 2 or 11 or 20. But यहाँ पे 1 and 3 के बीच में something should be there, ना? So this one has to be 2, which means that this will be 6. So overall, row 1 will be 36. Row 3 again, 4 plus 4, 8. 8 plus 7, 15. I need 3 more to make the next multiple of 9. I need 12 more to make the next multiple of 9. But 12 is not a possibility because 5 is the largest number that can exist. So I'll make it a 3 here. 5 plus 3 plus 2 will become 10. So 4 plus 4 plus 10 will become 18 for row 3. And in terms of column 3, it will be 38 plus 6, 44 plus 10, 15. Okay? So you are going to get 27 for column 1, 244, 686, 20, 132, 6, 355, 13, 111 that had been given to us, or we already knew it. 6, 12, 20, 112, 112 and 235. Okay. Very straightforward set. If you figured out that multiple of 9 needs to be done, this was the bottleneck that you needed to figure out. Once you figured that bit out, it was actually a very easy set. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and show you what the solution looked like. So this was what we got here. So these are exactly the same numbers. I have pre-filled it and kept so that it looks neat. That was the whole idea of this one. Yeah. So it's a fairly straightforward set. So if you look at the questions now, what is the total amount of money in the 3 pouches kept in the first column of the second row, right? Why not 7 and 2 for R1 C2 and R3 C2? 7 and 2 for R1 C2. So row 1 column 2, 7. That's it. And R3 C2, row 3 column 2, 2. But it will make it 9 here, 7 and 2. But then again, it will not add to everything, na? So if you have 7 here, let's say instead of 6, and 2 here instead of 1, you are increasing this by 1 and increasing this by 1. But then again, we will get what? 6, 7, 8, 21. 21 plus 5, 26 plus 3, 29 will become na. So that is the problem. So 6, 7, 8 is 21. 1, 1, 1 is 24 and 5 is 29. So it's not 27 anymore. Yeah, so I hope it's clear. Okay. Anyway. So what is the total amount of money in the 3 pouches kept in the first column of the second row? So first column, second row, total amount of money is 3 plus 5 plus 5, that is 13 rupees. So that is the total amount of money. Now this was one thing that I missed out. I just marked something here as the answer. 3, 4, 5, 12 or something I marked as the answer. But It was. Next question, how many pouches contain exactly one coin? Now this is basically where I took that guess that I mentioned. So one pouch has one coin, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pouches have exactly one coin. So that is basically going to be our answer. 8 pouches that will contain one coin each. The next one, what is the number of slots for which the average amount is an integer, right? So 2 plus 4 plus 4, 10. So the average amount in rupees of its 3 pouches is an integer, right? So here it has to be divisible by 3. Now this was another clue, but then again I honestly didn't see during the test as well, but it doesn't matter. So यहाँ पे 10 आएगा, 2 plus 4 plus 4, 6 plus 8 plus 6 will be 20, 1 plus 3 plus 2 is 6. Now this is indeed a multiple of 3. So यहाँ पे the average of these 3 pouches will be an integer. 5 plus 5 plus 3, 13. 1 plus 1 plus 1, 3. Again an integer because it's a multiple of 3. 6 plus 12 plus 20, 18 plus 20, 38. Not an integer. And again we can figure out if this is a multiple of 3, this is a multiple of 3. This has to be a multiple of 3, right? Otherwise it will not be an integer. 1 to 1, 4, not an integer. 1 to 1, 4 again, not an integer. 2, 5, 3, 10, not an integer. So there are exactly 2 pouches for which you will have the average amount of its 3 pouches, or 2 slots for which the average amount in the 3 slots will be an integer, which is row 1 column 3 and row 2 column 2. And the last bit, the number of slots for which the total amount in its 3 pouches strictly exceeds rupees 10 is what? So 2 plus 4 plus 4, 10. It does not exceed 10. So no, 6, 8, 6 definitely exceeds 10. Does not exceed 10. This should exceed 10 because there's already a 20 here, right? So this is again that guesswork that I'm talking about. So I'll show you what happened. This is definitely not. This is yes. This is definitely not. Definitely not. And this is definitely not. Right? So it should exceed 10. That is the question. So there are 3 slots wherein the total amount will exceed 10. Now during the test, if you are solving it during the test, whatever happens, it cannot go beyond 10 because 2, 4, worst case it will be 4. So this is not right. This is definitely greater than 10. 6 plus 8 already 10 के ऊपर है. This definitely cannot go by beyond 10. 1 plus 3 plus 3. This definitely has to be greater than 10. This definitely can't go beyond 10. यहाँ पे 3 and something and 5. Even if it is 3, it will go beyond 10. Na? So 5 plus 3, 8 plus 3, 11 will definitely go beyond 10. This definitely can't go beyond 10. Definitely can't go beyond 10. In this case, 5 plus 2, 7, right? That is what we have. It can go from 9 till 7 plus 5, 12. So 9 se leke 12 tak anything can happen. So even if I'm marking something randomly, my answer should be either 3 or 4, which gives me a 50% chance of getting it right. If I just mark 5 as my answer, that is not going to give me a good, definitely it is wrong, right? So my answer is either 3 or 4 for sure. अभी यहाँ पे there is a bit of luck that will come into the picture. If you just assume कि ठीक है 3 mark करना है, you can mark 3 and get done with it. ठीक है? Otherwise, definitely if you mark something except 3 or 4, then it's a big problem. Okay, so make sure that you are paying attention to these kind of things when you are solving the actual test as well, so that you end up gaining something that you might not have gained otherwise. And these are the 3 marks, 6 marks that are going to take your total from an 80th percentile to a 92, 93 kind of a percentile, right? So this is what makes the difference in many cases. So make sure that you are keeping an eye on these kind of situations as well. Okay, so most of you got the answer right. Yeah, so this is what we have here. Okay. Can we leave DILR sets that are categorized as C-type in SIM cards and only focus on A and B? Shrikant, yes, definitely you can do that. In fact, it is advisable that you do that. Some sets at the SIM cards are indeed very difficult, and they do not deserve to be solved during the test, right? They deserve to be solved. I know that the team creates it with a lot of hard work. But then during the test, 40 minutes you can let go. Even during analysis, if it's too difficult, it's okay, let go. The moral of the story is, even if something similar appears at the CAT, you cannot solve it in 40 minutes. That is the moral of the story. Okay. So let's move on to CAT 2020. Now we have officially entered the COVID era, and the CAT has been known to use some pop culture references abstractly, right? So this is what the set looked like in CAT 2020. It's a very manageable set, except maybe one question that is slightly on the difficult side or slightly difficult to read. Otherwise, the set was not difficult, honestly, right? It was manageable. It was, I can categorize this as maybe a type B. but it was a doable set. So of course, CAT 2020 slot 3, if you look at this particular set, if you look at this particular slot, CAT 2020 slot 3, I think was reportedly one of the difficult ones, right? So people struggled with CAT 2020 slot 3. Thankfully, I didn't take it in this slot. But otherwise, this was supposed to be a difficult slot come the CAT 2020. So this was one set that could have been done. Now, again, grading it on the basis of what exactly it looks like and what were the parameters that we had seen. Firstly, if you look at the set, there are 16 patients. They have to undergo a blood test for a disease. It is known that exactly one of them has the disease. So we know that exactly one has the disease, right? But because of constraints, the hospital has only 8 testing kits, right? Again, it was a very common thing back then, right? So 2020, and has decided to pool blood samples of patients into 8 vials for the tests, right? The patients are numbered 1 through 16, and the vials are labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Now there is a corollary. There is a different puzzle type as well, wherein, let's say for example, you have only 4 vials, and you have to figure out which of these 16 people actually has contracted the disease or who will test positive for the disease. Then there is a way to do that. So that is the famous rat poison puzzle that exists. So it is similar to that. This is an easier variant of that answer. Okay. So this is this looks something like it looks something like this. The following table shows the vials into which each patient's blood sample is distributed. So for example, patient 1, the blood was taken and was put into vials B, D, F and H. Patient 2 का blood was taken and was put into vials B, D, F and G. So हर एक patient का blood was divided into 4 parts. Now why did they do this? Right? Let's say for example, if they would have taken the blood from one patient and put it in only one vial, 8 लोगों का test हो जाता. But what if none of them is positive for the disease? Then what will we do? Right? Then there is a problem, right? And that is why these people decided that we will distribute it in such a manner. Now there is another way of distribution as well. They could have had only 4 vials. First patient ka they will not put it in any vial. Second patient they will put it only in the last vial. Third patient ka they will put it only in the second last vial. Fourth patient ka they will put it in the second last and the last vial. So I'm basically looking at binary numbers. So 0, 1, 2 and so on. So I'm looking at it in binary terms, and that way I can figure out 16 combinations for 4 places. That was the whole idea. But okay, doesn't matter. Let go of that logic. Okay. But यहाँ पे you have 8 vials and 16 people. So there is a way using which we can figure out. And हर एक का combination is unique, na? So if BDFH is present here, there is no other combination that is BDFH. अगर मैं patient 10 का blood लेके भी BDFH में ही डाल दूँ, if I put this patient's blood in vials BDFH, then it's a problem, right? Because then if they are positive, I don't know which one, because of which patient is this vial positive. So I don't know that. If both of them show positive reactions, right? So that is an issue. So that's why we don't really do this. We will go for different outcomes, and depending on where we get the positive response, we will know that which patient has contracted the disease. Okay. Now what has happened? If a patient has the disease, then each vial containing his or her blood sample will test positive. So let's say I am looking at it like this now. So I am talking about it as a pathologist. Let's say. Okay. Now I figured out that B, C, F, G. The test was positive for these 4 vials, and it was negative for these 4 vials, right? So it was negative. It's a good thing. That's why I'm putting a tick here, right? So yes. So B, C, F, G. If these 4 vials showed me a negative, or it showed me a positive result. Say for example, I'm talking a positive result, right? B, C, F, and G showed a positive result. Let's say. Then I know that this person, patient 6, is the one who has tested positive because all the 4 vials are showing me a positive. Okay? So if a patient has the disease, then each vial containing his or her blood sample will test positive. But if I'm looking at, let's say, patient 1, जहाँ पे B, D, F, H are the vials to whom one had contributed. तो क्या मतलब हो गया? उसका B vial positive दिखाएगा. B will show positive. D will not show positive. F will show positive. H will not show positive. So as soon as I see that B and F are showing positive, but D and H are not showing positive, I know for sure that one is definitely not the patient who has tested positive for the disease. Okay? So that is the way in which you interpret this set. So during the test as well, if you are not able to understand English, the language in which this set has been asked to you, and which is very common, even I find it difficult to understand what the set is supposed to mean. break it down into smaller parts, look at the scenarios that exist, and then figure out, this is how it looks like. So this is what the answer should, this is how we should go about answering this particular set. So here I figured out that, okay, at the end of the day, what are they going to do? They will put those 8 vials in front of them, and they will try to put that जो भी है antibody जो भी है antigen जो है वो डाल देंगे, and wherever that antigen antibody reaction happens and it shows a positive result, those 4 vials will be positive, and 4 vial positive हो सकते हैं. You cannot have 5 vials that will show positive, right? Because we haven't mixed the blood or done any other funny things here. Okay? So this is what it looks like. If a vial tests positive, one of the patients whose blood samples were mixed in the vial has the disease, obviously. If I'm saying that B is showing me a positive response, then it means that one of these 8 people has the virus. Okay? Or one of these people has the disease. That's what we know. If a vial tests negative, so A negative है. इसका मतलब क्या हो गया? None of the patients whose blood samples were mixed in the vial has the disease. So A consisted of patient 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, but A में positive आया ही नहीं है. A has not shown a positive reaction at all. This certainly tells me that patients 9 till 16 would definitely not have contracted the disease. So that is what we know. Okay? Fairly straightforward set. There is no other information known to us. This is the only information known to us, and then we get the questions. So the questions look something like this. Okay. Now grading the set by our existing standard, this set, right, is somewhat similar to that rat poison puzzle that I was talking about, right? So there is a white poison, a very classic puzzle that exists. So you might want to check that out. So wo wala puzzle, once you see, you will feel that it is बहुत easy to set it, right? So 2 is what I will give for familiarity. In terms of the data, everything has been given to us. There is nothing that needs to be done. There is no extra data that is required to solve this, right? Everything is plug-in more or less. So I'll say, 3 points in terms of data, and in terms of questions. Suppose, so possibility. I'll not even read the question. Possibility. Suppose, possibility. Is not possible. Possibility. Suppose one of these are possibility. So all are possibilities. I will maybe give 0 or 1 in terms of the question. So I'll give it a 6-pointer. So it's not exactly a set that I would recommend you solve to get marks. Purely because from what I can understand, the questions are all independent of each other and they depend on the information provided in the question. So I'm not solving one set to get 12 marks, right? I am solving 4 different questions to get 3 marks each. There's a difference between the 2 things. Okay? So that is why I'll give it a 6-pointer. Might not be the first set that I will solve, or might not be the set from where I'm expecting 12 or 12. Again, as I mentioned, I'm going into this set with an expectation of 50% by reading the data cursorily, right? Of course, once I get into the set and if the data is foolproof, then definitely it can become 100 as well. But while entering the set with only this much information in front of me, I'm saying that there's a 50% chance that I'm going to get the answers right? 2 correct, 2 wrong. That is what I'm going into the set. Okay? So 6-pointer. Of course, the CAT 19 set was easier than this one. So comparatively, you'll be able to figure out which one is the easiest. Okay. Now let's go to the questions directly and see what happens. So I'll just get the relevant information here. So suppose vial C tests positive and vials A, E, H test negative. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, all the vials we can see. Now vial C tests positive, right? So this is positive, is what I have seen, right? And A, E, H are negative. Now question के अंदर ही answer है, if you look at it. If a vial tests negative, then none of the patients whose blood samples were mixed in the vial has the disease. So which patient has the disease? A, E and H have all tested negative. So whoever has contributed to A, E, H will definitely not have the disease. So this one, 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 this one. These 8 people definitely don't have the disease. So now if you look at the options, option 1, patient 14 is out. Option 2, patient 16 is out. 2 options are already eliminated. Next thing. So A we have already considered now. E, whichever vial had or whichever patient had contributed to vial E will also not have the disease. Now I have to look at only patient 6 and patient 2 here. So if I look at patient 2, has patient 2 contributed to E? No. Could have the disease. Has patient 6 contributed to E? No. So can still have the disease. What about H? If someone has contributed to H, then they will have the disease. If they have not contributed to H, then they will not have the disease. Okay? So A, E and H test negative in this case. So A, E and H test negative. So B, D, F, G and B, C, F, G are the 2 cases that are there wherein they are testing negative. But we also know that C should test positive. In this case, C is not tested positive at all. So C को contribute ही नहीं किया. So if a viral test is positive, one of the patients whose blood samples were mixed has the disease. But in this case, 2's blood was not mixed in C at all. So 2 definitely does not have the disease. The only person who is eligible in this case to have the disease is patient 6. And so the correct answer is option C, patient 6. Yeah, some of you have got it right. Whoever has answered in the chat has got it right. So I'm very happy about it. So fairly straightforward question. Okay? So literally you have to just read what the data is saying. If negative, then none of these people will have the disease. So whoever has contributed to A, E or H definitely does not have the disease. And whoever has contributed to C might have the disease. Okay? So this is what we are trying to say in this. Observation based. Yeah, it's simply observation. There is no calculation, nothing. In fact, itna design I have made on the screen, nothing is required. You can just look at it and mark your answer. It's as simple as that. Okay? Next question. Now, maybe those of you who didn't get the first one, you can try the second question. Suppose while A tests positive and D and G test negative, which of the following vials should be tested next to identify the patient with the disease? So A positive hai. Again, what has been mentioned here? If a vial tests positive, one of the patients whose blood samples was mixed has the disease. So A tests positive. Matlab one of these 8 people definitely has the disease. And these people have not contributed to A, matlab these people definitely don't have the disease. Okay? So that is what the observation is, right? So A positive agar hai, so definitely one of these people has the disease for sure. Now in this case, vials D and G test negative, meaning that if a vial test negative, none of the patients who would have contributed to G or D would have the disease. So isne contribute kiya hai D ko, so 9 does not have the disease. 10 has contributed to D, does not have the disease. 11 has contributed to D, does not have the disease. 12 has contributed to D, does not have the disease. 13 has contributed to ACFH, has not contributed to D and G. So maybe 13 has the disease. 14, ACFG, G को contribute किया है, does not have the disease. ACEH has contributed to A, has not contributed to D or G. So could have the disease. And last one, ACEG has contributed to G, cannot have the disease. Okay? So now you have ACFH or ACEH. So now we have zeroed down between these, zeroed to these two cases, right? Either patient 13 is the one who has the disease or patient 15 is the one who has the disease. Now, दोनों के बीच में common क्या है? ACH, right? So ACH, if all of them are positive, or if one of these two people has the disease, I know for sure that AC and H are going to show me a positive response. A has already shown me the positive response. Now, if I test for C, I am sure that I am going to get it as positive. So I need not check for Y C. Similarly, if I check for H, I am sure I am going to get a positive response. So what is the need to waste my energy trying to test whether while H will show positive response or not? It is going to show positive response. I am confused between E and F. If F shows a positive response, then I know that 13 is my patient. If E shows the positive response, I know that 15 has the disease. Okay? So one of E or F will be checked next. In this case, we do not have F among the options. So the correct answer here will be option B, that is while E. Yeah. So all of you have answered in the chat. Good job. All of you have got it right. Okay? Now we'll move on to the next one. Which of the following combinations of test results is not possible? So we'll just run through this one. Which of the following is not possible? A and E positive, C and D negative. So there is one thing that is at play here, right? So if you look at the composition of, or you look at how the blood has been divided into vials, 1 to 8 may we have B for sure, 1 out of D or C, 1 out of F or E, 1 out of G or H. Here if you look at it, you have A for sure, 1 out of D or C again, 1 out of F or E again, 1 out of G or H again. So we can say, as a matter of fact, that we are dividing our observations evenly among these vials like this. So exactly half the people have contributed to vial A, exactly half the people have contributed to vial B. Exactly half the people have contributed to vial C, exactly half the people have contributed to vial D, and so on. Right? Now the point is, when I am going to get something positive, right? If vials A and E are positive and vials C and D are negative, right? Which of the combinations is not possible? Now if C and D are both negative, वो नहीं हो सकता ना? Either C or D has to be positive. If C and D are both negative, all these cases, all the 16 cases will have at least one vial which will show me a negative result. And we can't have that. Out of 16 patients, we know that one has the disease for sure. So all the vials have to be positive. So यहाँ by just observation you can figure out that because one out of D or C has to be negative, C and D both can't be negative together. ठीक है? A and D positive हो सकता है. So A is positive, out of A and B, A is positive, B negative, E is positive, F is negative, is fine. But D and C both can't be negative. Similarly, D and C cannot be both positive as well because they are mutually exclusive and cumulatively exhaustive scenarios that we are getting. Okay? So this is what we are looking at. So this is definitely not possible. But let's look at the other options. While B positive, so B tests positive, and C, F, H negative. So C is negative, F is negative, H is negative. Fair enough. B is positive, D could be positive, E could be positive, G could be positive. So here we can have C, F, H negatives because we have to choose one between D and C. C negative है चलेगा, D is positive. It's a possibility. F is negative, it's fine. E is a possibility. H is negative, fine. G is a possibility. Right? So we can always have B, D, E, G, which is the unfortunate person is patient 4. So this is possible. This is possible. Okay? Similarly, A and G are positive, right? So A is positive, G is positive, and D and E are negative. Fair enough. D is negative, E is negative, but C and F could be positive, no? So we can have A, C, F, G as my answer. So A, C, F, G. Again, in this case, the unfortunate person is patient 14. Sorry. So this is also possible. Similarly, B and D positive. So B is positive, D is positive, F and H are negative, meaning that E and G could be positive. So B, D, E, G. Again, patient 4 is the unfortunate one. In fact, this and this are similar, right? So in this case, again, this is possible. So the only thing that was not possible was option 1, and that is basically our answer. Like A and C का pair नहीं बन सकता. A and C का pair बन सकता है. Rupas, A and B क्यों pair बना है? Because if you look at this one, each vial has either B or A. There is no A and B. Right? A and B दोनों नहीं है कोई भी vial में. या तो A है या तो B है. Similarly, if you look at this one, या तो second position अगर देखते हो, या तो C है या तो D है. Third position देखते हो, या तो E है या तो F है. And last position में either it's H or G. Okay? So that's why one of those two has to exist. दोनों negative नहीं हो सकते. Because if both of them are negative, it will mean that everybody has at least one vial negative. And test positive होने के लिए all 4 should be positive. Okay? This was the difficult one, the last question that was there. But थोड़ा observation से you could have managed this as well. But ठीक है, थोड़ा difficult. I can understand if someone would have got this one wrong. ठीक है? In fact, when I read it for the first time, even I couldn't understand what exactly was being asked. And there was a very good chance that one case could have been missed. But otherwise, it was a manageable question. Okay? Now, what has happened is one of the lab assistants accidentally mixed 2 patients' blood samples. Right? Now, again, you have to think about what has happened. Okay? Abhi, let's say, for example, 1 or 2 ka blood sample mix ho, for example. Okay? Right? And let's say the infected person is someone else. The infected person is this one. Okay? Infected person 16 hai, let's say, for example. Okay? Interesting question. I find type A category said to be difficult and type B said you might want to change your categorization parameters. The point is you have to build your score like this. If you don't solve the easy sets and only solve this one, your pyramid will collapse. Because a lot of people who don't know anything to solve are definitely going to solve this one. And if you end up solving this by taking a lot of time, you might end up making some mistake here and you are getting 3 correct. The other person is going to get 4 correct or 5 correct. You are definitely losing. So that's why category A questions are the ones that are supposed to be attempted first. Because category A is designed purely on the basis of people's performance. It's not our judgment ki easy hai ki difficult hai. It's purely based on data after the test is done. Okay? So if you're finding it difficult, maybe you might not want to overthink category A questions. Ya fir your compartmentalization is slightly off. So try to see where is it that you're making a mistake while judging this. That is the only feedback that I will give. Okay? So let's say for example 1 or 2 ka mix kiya tha and this one was the one who was positive. Now what will the final outcome look like, right? So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Now considering that this guy is positive, A, C, E, G, So A, C, E, G. So this is positive, C is positive, E is positive, G is positive. Because patient 16 is the one whose blood has tested positive, not tested, right? 16 has tested positive. So A, C, E, G, all the 4 vials will show a positive result, right? The other vials will show a negative result. B, D, F, H will show a negative result. Now, if I mix patient 1 and patient 2 ka blood, I have mixed those two samples that I have got, right? Now, what will happen in this case? B mix kar diya, but they don't have the disease at all. B will be negative. D दोनों का mix कर दिया, negative, doesn't matter. F mix कर दिया, negative. H and G I mix. So H में A का 1 का H में 2 का blood will be there. G में 1 का blood will be there. Doesn't matter. Neither of them is contributing to the virality, na, or the disease, right? That is why it will have no impact on the result. So how many vials will show me a positive test result out of 8? There will be 4 vials that will show me a positive test result, and they have to show me a positive test result for sure. Q, because one of these 16 is infected now, and whoever is infected is going to show me a result wherein all 4 vials will show me positive results. Okay? So 4 is the bare minimum that will show a positive result. Now let's say, for example, I go to the other extreme. I mix the blood of 2 people who are definitely not related to each other. Ab not related matlab kya? We had seen in the previous question, either of A or B has to be there, C or D mein se one has to be there, E, F one has to be there, and out of G and H one has to be there. Okay? That is what we had seen earlier. Now let's say, for example, I look at one scenario wherein the patient is A, C, E, G, this guy, and I look at another scenario wherein the patient is B, D, F, H, this guy. Now let's say I mix the blood of patient 1 with the blood of patient 16. Now this is a disaster. Why? Because I have mixed 16 and 1, there is some blood that is going to go into vials A, C, E, G, and there is some blood that is going to get into vials B, D, F, H. And because these two blood samples have mixed, all these vials will now be showing a positive result. So this is the worst possible outcome, wherein I am adding the blood of 2 people to each other who are completely unrelated. And when I say unrelated, it meant in terms of the vials that their blood is going in. Okay? And that is basically why the maximum can be 8. So my answer will be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Option C. Okay? So this is what we are going to write here. Now, obviously, if you are concerned, 5, 6, 7 kahan se aa gaya and so on, you can do that as well. So let's say, for example, I just need to look at 2 samples who are separated by just 1. So ये वाला पकड़ लो, 9 and 10 पकड़. So let's say 9 is positive. 9 had tested positive. Okay? Or 9 is in fact positive in terms of having the disease. And I have accidentally mixed 9 and 10 ka blood. So what will happen to my vials? So I have 8 vials, right? So ADFH and ADFG, all of them will show me a positive result. So A will show me a positive result, D will show me a positive result, F will show me a positive result, G will show me a positive result, and H will show me a positive result. So these 5 vials are going to show me a positive result. Whereas B, C and E के अंदर ये दोनों का contribution ही नहीं है ना. So although the blood is mixed, and that's why not really an indicative of what or which one will have the disease, I know for sure that because I have mixed it between these 2 people, I will have A, D, F, H and G. वहां तक ही मेरा extent होगा. Other vials will definitely not have blood from these people, and that is why it will not show any positive. Okay? So there can be 5 vials. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 vials can be positive. If I look at 2 cases जहाँ पे they are separated by 2 places, then I will get 6. So let's say, for example, I'm looking at BCFH and BCEG, for example. Let's ये दोनों को. So यहाँ पे if I mix these 2 blood samples and let's say 5 is infected, then B, C, E, F, G, H, 6 vials will be the ones that will show an infection. Otherwise, नहीं देखेंगे. ठीक है? Similarly, 7, similarly. So that is basically how you solve this. But during the test, 4 mil gaya, 8 mil gaya, that is the end of the story. So 4 to 8 is what we are going, right? So the correct answer here is option C. Fine. So let's move to CAT 2021 now. Right? Now, this was again CAT 2021 slot 1, friends, acquaintances. This was again not my slot. CAT 2021, I took it in slot 2, or I was put into slot 2. Yeah. Okay. When to decide to move on to a different set, even though the set you tried to solve was an A set. Srikanth, again, I have one very simple parameter for this. 60 seconds of inactivity. 60 seconds of not putting pen to paper and writing down a fresh scenario, you should get out of this. Okay? Aage time bacha, you can always plug that time into that set. And trust me, your brain will keep on solving this set, although you have left it far behind. Okay? So although you might not be consciously focusing on this set, your brain will subconsciously be solving that particular. So don't worry about it. 60 seconds of inactivity and just go to the next. That's it. उससे ज़्यादा time pass मत कर. Okay, because you will definitely have time left at the end, and वो वाला time you can plug in here instead of wasting time here and delaying आगे वाला gratification. Okay, so don't do that. Fair enough. So let's look at this one. So here you have 7 friends, Amudha, or 7 people rather. Amudha, Bharatan, Chandran, Dhinesh, Ezhil, Fani and Gowtham. Right, so 7 people are there. Any pair of them could either be strangers, acquaintances, or friends. Right, now something similar had appeared at the cat earlier as well, but not in the same format. Thoda alag tha, but more or less the logic was manageable. And I'm sure something like this you would have seen at the SimCats as well. Okay? And all relationships are mutual. For example, if Amudha is a friend of Bharatan, then Bharatan is also a friend of Amudha. So dono taraf match karega. Similarly, if Amudha is a stranger to Bharatan, then Bharatan is also a stranger to Amudha. So whatever happens here will happen on the other side of the grid as well. Okay? Partial information about the number of friends, acquaintances and strangers of each of the people below or among them is given in the table below. So the table has been given to us. We'll again look at the additional information. So A, B, C are mutual strangers, A, D, F are Ezhil's friends and so on. So some information has been given to us here and the questions that we have. So there are 5 questions. So CAT 21, 22 had 5 questions per set. So that's what it looked like. So who are Gowtham's acquaintances? Which of these pairs share the same type of relationship? Who is an acquaintance of Amudha? Who is an acquaintance of CAT 21 had 6464 and CAT 22 had 555. Right? So 6 questions in this set. So it was a rewarding set. So who are Gowtham's acquaintances? There is expected to be only one answer. Which of these share the same type of relationship? Again, there is no cannot be determined, none of these. So yes, definitely one of these is our answer. Who is an acquaintance? There is only one answer. Who is an acquaintance? There is only one answer. How many friends? A specific answer. How many people are either a friend or a friend of friend? Specific answer, right? So the questions are all closed in nature. So if you look at the set that we have here, it's a fairly straightforward set. There is nothing to understand here. So familiarity wise, I'll give it 3 points. In terms of the data, if you look at the data, mutual strangers, so you'll be able to plug them directly into the caselet. Direct friends, again plug in. Friends, plug in. This is a deductive scenario, right? So you'll not be able to plug in anything directly, but you'll be able to say that, okay, this is what it looks like. Okay. All right. So this is what we have here. Okay. Fine. So this is what we have here in case of this. So in case of data, mostly plugin, somewhat deductive. There are a lot of blanks that I can see. I have to put names as well. So it is not entirely plugin. There will be a lot of deduction that will be involved. That is what I know. So maybe I'll give it 1 on a plugin or deductive data kind of a scale. And in terms of the questions, all the questions were close, so 4. So this is an 8 pointer for me. Again, one of the doable sets. So if I put my mind to it, I think I should be able to do this set easily. So that is basically the expectation from this entire set. Okay. So here, if you look at the basic data points that we have here, we'll go to the next one and see. Okay. Yeah. If you go to this one, and if you just try to see where we plug in the values, we should be able to manage the set. Again, those of you saw it, it was a spoiler. I have already solved it, and of course, it had to be that way. Otherwise, we might have struggled, right? But what we have to understand is there are 6 people to whom one person is related. Okay? So Amudha is related to 6 people, be it in the form of a friend, an acquaintance, or a stranger. Okay? So here 4 are strangers, 1 is an acquaintance. I know that 1 has to be a friend because there are only 6 people to whom Amudha will be related to. Similarly, in terms of Gowtham, 3 acquaintances, 2 strangers, 1 has to be a friend. That is what we know for sure. We also know that Amudha, Bharatan and Chandran are mutual strangers. Meaning that to Amudha, Bharatan and Chandran will be strangers. To Bharatan, Amudha and Chandran will be strangers. And to Chandran, Amudha and Bharatan will be strangers. Okay? So in front of these 4, I'll just start writing the names. So B and C are strangers to Amudha. In this case, A and C are strangers to Bharatan. And A and B are strangers to Chandran. So basically we know this. Okay, we have taken care of this point. Amudha, Dhinesh and Fani are E's friends. So A, D and F are E's friends. So E will have at least 3 friends, A, D and F for sure. And he might have more friends, but A, D, F for sure. Now that will tell us that A will have E as the friend, and because A has only one friend, that friend has to be E. Similarly, D will have E as a friend, but we don't know how many friends D has, so we'll just keep E here. And F had one friend, and that friend will have to be E again. So this part we have taken care of, right? So A, D, F we have taken care of. Dinesh, we don't know how many friends does Dinesh have, so take care, that's fine. Right? So this is what it looks like at this point. So this we have taken care of. Chandran and Gowtham are friends, right? Chandran and Gowtham are friends. So Chandran will definitely have Gowtham as a friend, and Gowtham will have Chandran as a friend, but because Gowtham has only one friend, that friend has to be Chandran. So again, this part, this bracket has been closed, this part has been taken. Fine. So this is what we have till now. This part is done. Now every friend of Amudha is an acquaintance of Bharatan. So every friend of Amudha is an acquaintance of Bharatan, and every acquaintance of Bharatan is a friend of Amudha. So these two are exactly the same people. So if Amudha has one friend, Bharatan also has one acquaintance. If Amudha's friend is Ezhil, then Bharatan's acquaintance will also be Ezhil. Okay? That is basically how you pronounce it, I believe, right? So this is pronounced as Ezhil, not Ezhil, right? One acquaintance will be for Bharatan, and that will be Ezhil. Fine. Similarly, every friend of Bharatan is an acquaintance of Amudha, and every acquaintance of Amudha is a friend of Bharatan. So it will look like this. So whatever one person we have here will also be the same person who is present, which means that the number of strangers to B will be 4 as well. So I know for sure that this is 114. Okay. So we're taking care of this, we're taking care of this. Now this is where your plugin things end, plugin thing ends. And now you have to figure out the deductive conditions that are. Right? Now again we'll have to look at the numbers that exist, and we'll have to see where all can these numbers fit. Okay? And that is again going to give us a lot of insights. So let's look at the larger numbers first. So let's look at this 3. Right? Now Gowtham has 3 acquaintances. C is definitely not an acquaintance. Right? So if Gowtham has 3 acquaintances, they will also feature in this list. Now who all are left? C is not possible. So I am left with A, B, D, E, F. So out of these 5 people, 3 will be Gowtham's acquaintances and 2 will be strangers to Gowtham. So that is what we know. So in this case, who can be acquaintances to Gowtham? Can A be an acquaintance to Gowtham? Possible. A can be an acquaintance to Gowtham, in which case B will be a friend to Gowtham, and again we will be able to plug in that data, which is fine. Can B be an acquaintance to Gowtham? Not really, because B already had one acquaintance, and that acquaintance is we know that E is an acquaintance to B. So B does not have the place to have another acquaintance. So B is definitely not in this. Also, we know that D is present here. So D could be an acquaintance to G. E could be an acquaintance to G. F could be an acquaintance to G. This part is fine. Now we also know that Gowtham is related to B in some way. No? Gowtham is related to B in some way. Gowtham is not friends with B. Gowtham does not have B as an acquaintance. So Gowtham will have B as a stranger. So this is what will be present. Now because Gowtham has B as a stranger, B will have G as a stranger. Right? So whenever you fill one part of the table, you have to fill the corresponding part of the table as well. So if G and B are strangers, B and G will also be strangers. Right? That is how we read this. Now again, coming back to this part. Right? Now Bharatan has one friend who is left and one stranger who is left. Okay. Now Bharatan has the same friend as Amudha will have an acquaintance. So again, this is where you have to link things, right? There might be other way of solving this as well, but this is, if you get into this train of thought, let's say, you start thinking about things. Now, when we saw these 3, there were 4 possibilities that existed: A, D, E, F. But you have to understand, if A is an acquaintance of Gowtham, then this 1 will become G, right? G will be an acquaintance of Amudha, which will mean that G is a friend of Bharatan, because these two are the same, right? And because G cannot be a friend to Bharatan, because G and B are strangers, G cannot be an acquaintance to Amudha as well. So G and A are not acquaintances. So these 3 people, we have the identity ready now. D, E and F will be acquaintances to Gowtham. That is what we will have. Okay. So D, E, and F will be acquaintances to Gowtham. So we will have G here, we will have G here, we will have G here. These three have been taken care of. Now I am left with only two here. So B, C, D, E, F have all been taken care of. The other stranger to Gowtham should be A, which means that this one should be G. Okay. So again, we have got some more information. Now Gowtham is completely done. C, D, E, F, D, A is what we have here for Gowtham. So that part is taken care of. Okay. Similarly, we have G here in the bracket, we have G here in the bracket, E here in the bracket, and so on. Okay. Now let's look at the next bit and let's try to see what happens. Right? Let's look at Chandran. Let's see if that takes us somewhere. So in this case, we have Chandran. Chandran has one acquaintance for sure. Right? Now, who can that acquaintance be? So if you look at people except Chandran, so A, B, D, E, F, G. Right? Now for Chandran, G cannot be an acquaintance because G is a friend. A cannot be an acquaintance, B cannot be an acquaintance because they are strangers. Right? Now what else can be? D, E, F are present. Out of D, E, and F, one of them has to be Chandran's acquaintance. But again, we can't do anything about it, so we will let go. Okay. What else do we have? Amudha. Let's look at Amudha and see if that takes us somewhere. So in case of Amudha, Amudha has already established a relationship with E, P, C, G. So who all are left? We are left with D, we are left with F. Right? So one out of D or F will be an acquaintance to Amudha and the other one will be a stranger to Amudha. Okay? Now if you look at what has happened in case of D or F, here D and F are both empty. So one of D or F can fit here. In this case also D and F are empty. But again we have to understand that whatever is going to happen here is also going to happen here. So let's say for example, D is Amudha's acquaintance. Right? If D is Amudha's acquaintance, then D will be Bharatan's friend. Is that possible? Yes. Because D we haven't established how many friends does D have and if we have exhausted all the places that exist. But if F would have been an acquaintance of A, then F would have been a friend of B, which meant that F would have to take an additional friend. But we have already been told that F has exactly one friend and we have established that that friend is E. So F cannot be present here and that is why D has to be present here. F has to be present here. Right? If D is present here, then D will have A as an acquaintance. If F is present here, F will have A as a stranger. If D is present here, D will be present here as a friend to B. And if D and B are friends, B will also appear here. Okay? Now if you look at Dhinesh, he already had two strangers, two acquaintances, two friends. So then there is no place for anyone else. So 2 EB, 2 GA and the remaining 2. So we will have C and F who will be strangers to D. So C and D are strangers. So D will feature here and F and D are strangers. So D will feature here. Okay? So this is how it works. So now D also has been established completely. So D has been established completely. G has been established completely. A has been established completely. For B, if you look at it, D and E are already here. So A, C, G and F will have to be present here. Which means that F will have to have B as an acquaintance. So ye ho jayega. Now if you look at F, 1 is present here, 2 are here, 3 are here, have already taken care of all 6 people. So this part is complete. F has been completed, P has been completed. Now bacha Chandran and Ezhil. Right? So in terms of Chandran and Ezhil, we already know that Ezhil has A, D, F and G here. So 4 people have already been accounted. The remaining 2 people are B and C. Right? Out of B and C, there has to be one person who is a stranger to E. But B has already exhausted all the positions that were left for strangers. So there is only one person who could be a stranger to E, which is C. So this one will be C, and because C and E are strangers, E will be present here as well. Okay? So now we have one C who is present. Now if you look at Chandran, Chandran already had a G here, one person here, so 1 plus 1, 2 plus 4, 6 we have already accounted for Chandran. And we also know that G, A, B, D, E have all been accounted for Chandran. So the last one has to be F. Now if C and F are acquaintances, then we will have F and C to be acquaintances. So this we are already put. So that would have helped us in the previous one as well. But C and F will be acquaintances. Similarly, G and C are friends, and G and C are friends. They are the only, or G is the only friend that C has. So that is again taken care of. Now we are left with only D, with only E. So AL ke andar, if you look at the number of friends that are there, A, D, F are the friends that are there. C and G we have taken care of. We are left with only B and we are left with A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah, we are only left with B. So B could either be a friend to L or B could be an acquaintance to L. Now because E is present here, B will be present here. We'll make it 2 acquaintances, and because there are the only 3 people left here, 3 will become friends to L. So now we have drawn the entire chart here. Again, single chart should have helped you solve this entire set, and that is what it would have looked like more or less. Okay. So if you look at the finished chart, E, D, B, C, G, F, and C, D, E, F, B, A, C, D, E, F, B, A, and E, D, B, C, G, F. Yeah. So this is what the chart looks like in totality. Of course, you could have done it in some other way as well. You could have done it in a quicker manner, but whatever comes to your mind, that is basically what works, right? And it was not a very difficult set. Just that in one scenario, yeah, I didn't write B in E. So B and E is something that I missed. So in chat as well, people have said. So that would have helped us solve it even quicker. But then again, you can also miss it during the test, right? So I missed it. But then again, you could have marked B and E together. Again, that would have led to a quicker answer. But this is basically how you could have solved this, right? But then there is a lot of writing to be done. A lot of things that you have to keep in mind. So if you are writing something somewhere, the other thing has to be written somewhere else. Because there is 3 here and 2 here, 1 has to be there. You have already written 2 here, the remaining 2 have to be there, right? So there are a lot of things that you have to keep in mind when you're solving this set. So people who have trouble retaining things, you will find this set to be a bit difficult, but otherwise this was a fairly manageable set. Let's have a look at the solutions here. So who are Gowtham's acquaintances? So in terms of Gowtham, who are the acquaintances? There are 3 acquaintances, D, E, F. So the correct answer here is B, Dhinesh, Ezhil, and Fani. Right? So this is what the answer is to the first question. Who are Gowtham's acquaintances? D, E, F. Next one, which of the following pairs share the same type of relationship? So Bharatan and Chandran. So B and C are strangers, and D and E. So D and E are friends. So not the same relationship. C and E are strangers. D and G. D and G are acquaintances. So not the same relationship. A and G are strangers. E and F are friends. So not the same relationship. So this is my answer. But let's check. B and E are friends. B and E are acquaintances. And F and G are also acquaintances. Right? So this is our answer. Option D is correct. Which of these pairs share the same type of relationship? Bharatan and Ezhil are both acquaintances. And Fani and Gowtham are also acquaintances. Who is an acquaintance of Amudha? So Amudha, who is an acquaintance? The Amudha is only one acquaintance, that is D. So the correct answer is option A, that is Dhinesh. Who is an acquaintance of Chandran? Chandran has only one acquaintance, F, Fani. So the correct answer is option C, that is Fani. How many friends does Ezhil have? Ezhil has exactly 3 friends, A, D, and F. So this was a theta question. The correct answer here is 3. Ezhil has 3 friends, A, D, and F. And how many people are either a friend or a friend of Ezhil? So how many friends does Ezhil have? 3 friends. So A, D, F are the 3 friends that Ezhil has. How many friends does A have? Only one friend, E. How many friends does D have? B and E. How many friends does F have? Only one. So cumulatively, how many people have we accounted for? A, D, F, E, B. So we have accounted for 5 people. So there are 5 people who are either a friend of L or a friend of a friend of L. So that is our answer. Okay. So once you started putting data into the set, everything would have collapsed quickly, right? So that is what it looked. So many of you got the answer, and many of you got the answer correctly. So I'm very happy about that. Yeah. So let's move on to the last set of the day, CAT 22. So those of you who have not solved CAT 22 and intend to solve CAT 22 later, this is the time when you let go of the session. But do check out the solution in the end. It's a very interesting question. Again, not from my slot. So we'll look at the next set. Oh, sorry, Ezhil cannot be counted. Yeah, Ezhil cannot be counted. How many people is a friend or a friend of Ezhil? So the answer is 4. Sorry, I'm so sorry about this. The correct answer is 4. Yeah. Yes. So we are looking at Cat 22 slot 3 neighborhoods. So this is what the question looked like. Again, this was a slightly difficult one. This was not an easy set at all. So I think the progression was in such a manner that our first set that we did was a relatively easier set, then slightly difficult, then slightly more difficult, and this is probably the most difficult set of the session today, right? So this is the last set that we have for today. This is slot 3 Cat 2022. Cat 22 slot 3 was more or less on the easier side, I would say. In fact, when the results came out, a lot of the toppers were from slot 3 that we got as well from our data. But then again, of course, things got normalized. And as I said, I went from 33 to 39. And of course, people came down in slot 3 and slot 2, I think, remained consistent. So that was basically what it looked like. But otherwise, this was a nice, interesting set. There are only 4 neighborhoods in a city. So LTPK for practical purposes. Onset of a pandemic, the number of new cases was recorded over a period of 5 days. On each day, the number of new cases recorded was either 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So it's either of 0, 1, 2, 3. There weren't 4 cases that were recorded or 10 cases that were recorded. 0, 1, 2, or 3 new cases would have been recorded. There was at least 1 new case in every neighborhood on day 1. So every neighborhood, there was at least 1 new case that was registered. On each of the 5 days, there were more cases in K than P. Again, some relative information that has been given. The number of cases in the city. Now, city is the entire city, right? So this is the entire city. These 4 are the neighborhoods. So you have to understand which one is the city, which one is the neighborhood. I know a lot of people would have assumed that these are cities and every city should have an increasing order in terms of the cases that are getting added. A lot of you might have done 0, 1, 2, 3 and would have then thought that the question is wrong because there are 5 days and there are only 4 numbers to fill, right? So I'm sure a lot of you would have got stuck in on this point as well. So make sure that you're reading the set properly. 1 city, 4 neighborhoods. So neighborhoods are different cities. Okay. The number of new cases on day 3 was exactly 1 more than those on day 2. That on day 2. Maximum number of new cases was 2 for neighborhood P, and it happened only once during the 5-day period. K has the only places that has 3 new cases and total number of cases has been given. So this is the data that we have. If you look at the questions, what best can be concluded about the number of new cases or in L on day 3? Again, either 2 or 3, either 0 or 1. It tells me that there might be some uncertainty that might be involved. It might not be, but there might be some uncertainty. So I would say that this is an open question. On which day did not have. Both day 2 and day 4, only day 2, only day 3. So again, this is sort of an open question. Which 2 are necessarily false, right? 2 new cases, no new cases. Both, neither. So again, I don't know what will happen. It is sort of an open question. On how many days did they have the same number of cases? This is a closed question. There is exactly one answer that is expected. What best can be concluded? Open question. So 4 open questions. Now, if you look at the data that we have here, the familiarity is fairly straightforward. You have to draw a table. You have to draw it over 5 days. So I will give 3 points to familiarity. In terms of the data that has been given to us, there is no plugin data. We know that there is only one plugin data, which is, Kitmisto is the only place to have 3 new cases on day 2. So this is the only plugin data. We will have 5 by 4, 20 blocks that we will need to fill, out of which we have data for only 1 block, right? So this is definitely an plugin wala set. I'll maybe give it a 1 or a 0. In this case, in terms of options, I'll give it a 1 or a 2. So overall, it's a 4 pointer. Right? Earlier we were seeing sets that were 8 pointers, 9 pointers, and so on. This is a 4 or a 5 pointer at max. So this is not something that I will do in round 1. I might do it a bit later, but again, I might not do it in round 1. Having said that, once we start solving the set, there are funny things that are going to happen. So let's see what the entire set looks like. For our convenience, and to not subject you to my horrible drawing, I have just drawn a small table and kept it ready. We'll just try to plug in data here. Okay. Now what do we know here? There was at least 1 new case in every neighborhood on day 1. So at least 1 new case. I know for sure that there were at least 4 cases on day 1. Utna to meko pakka. Okay? On each of the 5 days, there were no more cases in Kitmisto than Pesmisto. Right? So K always had more cases than P. So if K had 1 case, then P will have 0 cases. If K will have 2 cases, P will have 1 or 2, 1 or 0, sorry. If K will have 2, then 0, 1, 2, 3, then 0, 1, 2, sorry. That's how it will progress. Which basically means that K will never have a 0, and which basically means that P will never have a 3. That is what it is implied here. But then again, you will see that this entire thing is a red herring, because later you will see that there was no meaning of this point at all. A number of cases, new cases in a day kept on increasing in the city, kept on increasing during the 5-day period. So total on day 2 will be greater than day 1, day 3 will be greater than day 2, day 4 will be greater than day 3, day 5 will be greater than day 4, and this is basically what will be the backbone of this section. This is a very important condition. I will have to make use of this very well. Maximum number of new cases in a day in Pesmisto was 2. So max in this row was 2. So I'll just put 2 max here, and this happened only once during the 5 days, right? Kitmisto is the only place to have 3 new cases on day 2. So this is 3, and all others were either 0 or 1 or 2. So यहाँ पे 3 है, right? This part I have taken care of completely. Total number of new cases in LTPK in this order were 12, 5 and 14 respectively. Okay? So total cases will be 12 plus 12, 24 plus 5, 29 plus 14 is 43. So 43 cases in total over the 5 days that existed. And this is again going to play a very pivotal role in this set. So again, this we have taken care of. Fine. So this is what we know, right? Now we know, of course, that if this is 14 and we have 0, 1, 2 or 3 cases every day, how can we make 14 over 5 days? This has to be 3, 3, 3, 3, 2. Has to be 3, 3, 3, 3, right? In this case, I know that 2 is maximum and 2 is present on only one day. What does it mean? It will have 2, 1, 1 and cross. So 2, 1, 1, 0. This is what it will look like for P. In case of L, in case of T, you can either have 3, 3, 3, 3, 0 or 3, 3, 3, 2, 1. Similarly, 3, 3, 3, 2, 0 or 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 0 or 3, 3, 3, 2, 1. Right? So these are the only 2 cases that exist for L and T. We'll have a look at it later. Right? Now what we have here is 43. Now also, what we also know here is, let's say in case of K and day 1, right? We had said that on day 1 there was at least 1 new case in every neighborhood, and we said that it will be at least 4. But we know that the least number that K can take is 2. So K will be at least 2, the remaining will be at least 1, which means that day 1 has to be at least 5 and not at least 4. Right? So day 1 has to be at least 5 and not at least 4, as we have mentioned. So 5 ho sakta hai, 6 ho sakta hai, 7 ho sakta hai, and so on. Right? Now let's see what happens. So those of you who have done your module 1 nicely, you would have seen these kind of puzzles in your very first class. Right? So there you might have seen something like this, wherein you are forced to take numbers and do this. So let's say, for example, day 1 is 5. If day 1 had 5 cases, what is the minimum number of cases that should have been present on day 2? 6 hona chahiye tha. Day 3, 7, day 4, 8, day 5, 9, which would have given us the total number of cases as 35 minimum. So minimum there would have been 35 cases. If day 1 had 5 cases. If day 1 had 6 cases, what is the minimum number that can happen? Because every day has, or the number of cases is in an increasing order. If day 1 had 6, day 2 had to have 7 cases at least, 8 cases day 3, 9 day 4, 10 day 5. तो पूरा मिला के 40 cases हो गए minimum. If day 1 has 6 cases, if day 1 has 7 cases, you will have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, which will make it 45 minimum. But अपने पास cases है ही 43. So day 1 cannot have 7 cases. Day 1 will have either 5 cases or 6 cases. Those are the only 2 possibilities that exist for day 1. Okay? So total will either be 5 or 6. Right? Now we have to look at day 2, 3, 4 and 5 in this context. And 43 is what we have here. Now to make a 43, if you have already accounted for a 5 and a 6, what exactly should be the split here? That is what we have to see. And there was one more thing that was present here, which is the number of new cases on day 3 was exactly 1 more than day 2. So day 2, whatever is the number of cases, day 3 will have 1 more case than whatever happened on day 2. This is one information that we have. Again, we'll not be using it now, but there is this information that exists. Okay? So this is what we have here. Now what can we say in this context? I want to have 43 cases, right? I want to have 43 cases. I have to have these cases spread among over these 5 days. I've already accounted for 5 or 6 cases in day 1. Now if I've accounted for 5 or 6 cases in day 1, D2 to D5 4 days का total कितना होना चाहिए? If 5 cases, then total should be 38. If 6 cases, then total should be 37. So my total has to be either 38 or 37. That is what needs to happen. Now, as we had seen the minima for day 1, let's look at what happens on day 5 or what happens on maximum, on a day where everyone does well. On a day when everyone does well, we saw that L can be in the form of 33330 or 33321. ये हो सकता था, right? And P was 21110 and K was 33332. So what is the maximum value that can happen on a day? 3 plus 3 plus 2 plus 3. ये maximum हो सकता है. Which day will be the maximum? Day 5 has to be the maximum, ना? Because it is in an ascending order. So day 5 अगर maximum है, day 5 का maximum value can be 11. If day 5 is 11, what is the maximum value that day 4 can take? 10. Day 3 can take 9. Day 2 can take 8. So 8, 9, 10, 11 possibility है. What will this give us? 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 is going to give us 38. Is this what we need? Yes. We need 38. If 11 is the maximum that can be present here, and uske baad whatever we have done here leads us to 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe that is the number that we are supposed to take. Because अगर यहाँ पे मैंने 11 लिख दिया, let's say if I put 11 here and I put a 9 here, let's say, okay, I'm so sorry, because I have 11 here, let's say I put a 9 here, then I will have to put an 8 at max and a 7 here because 7 plus 1 होना चाहिए यहाँ पे. What will this give me? 7, 8, 9 will give me 24. 24 plus 11 is going to give me only 35. But I need either 37 or 38. So this 11 that was possible has to happen on this day. अगर ये 11 नहीं होता, then there is going to be a big problem for me. Because 10, 9, 8, 7 is definitely going to be inadequate. It is going to give me only 34. Whereas I need at least 37. So the only possibility that exists here is if day 5 total was 11, day 4 was 10, day 3 was 9, and day 2 was 8. And this is the bottleneck that will help you crack this set. If this part did not strike you during the test, then you would have not been able to solve this set. If this part would have struck you, then great, you have solved this set. Now, because these are 8, 9, 10, and 11, we have already accounted for 38. So this one has to be 5 and not 6. Okay? So this is what it means. Now we can fill some things. So 11 कैसे आने वाला था? 3 plus 2 plus 3 plus 3 was the only way I could get an 11. So this will be 3, this will be 2, this will be 3, this will be 3. Okay? Now this one is a 5. First day 5 है. My first day is 5. Can I have a 3 here? Right? If I have a 3 here, I will have 3. 1 will make it a 6, na? Because there was at least one new case in every neighborhood on day 1. So इधर अगर मेरे को 5 बनाना है, this one has to be 2 and the remaining 3 have to be 1 each. Because if I don't make this 2, then I will have to make this 3 because there are only 2 possibilities that exist, either 2 or 3. So यहाँ पे you will get 2, 1, 1, 1. That will be the split that you will have. Now because I already accounted for this 1, 2, the remaining all numbers have to be 3 in this row because we are left with only the 4 3s that we have here. Okay? So this is what we have filled here. What else can we do? So in this context, if you look at what is happening on day 2, day 2 there was one small bit of information that we had nicely ignored. Others will have 0, 1 or 2. So if this person is 3, the remaining have to be either 0, 1 or 2. Now if this person is 3, these 3 people cumulatively or these 3 neighborhoods will have to cumulatively make 5. How can you make a 5 using 0, 1, 2? You can either go for 2, 2, 1 or 2, 1, 1, 1 or 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. But we have only 3 places. So क्या बनाएंगे यहाँ पे? We'll have to make it in the form of 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, right? Now if I want to make it as 2, 2, 1, this one has to be 1 because maximum is 2 and that has happened on only one day, which is day 5 here. So if this one is 1, these 2 will have to be 2 each. So day 2 has been accounted for. Right? Similarly, if you look at it, what has happened in this context as well? If you look at day 3 or day 4, day 4 has to be equal to 10. And this person has already contributed a 3. Now, if this person has contributed a 3, the remaining 3 people will have to contribute a 7. This person can contribute a 1 at most, because 2 we have already used, one of the ones we have already used, and another one we have already used, right? So this person can contribute 1 at most, and these 2 people can contribute 3 at most. So this will have to be 3, 3 and 1. So iska last wala one we use. Now we are left with only a 0. So this one will be a 0. अभी यहाँ पे 12 बनाना है. So 1 plus 2 3 plus 3 6 plus 3 9 plus 3 12. 1 plus 2 3 plus 3 6 plus 3 9 plus 3 12. Now we have got the entire set. We have got all the information that we needed to get. The only bottleneck was this 8 9 10 11 wala part. So if you would have figured out 8 9 10 11 ही क्यों possibility है, you are sorted. Similarly, if you would have spotted that this 5 is the only, or 5 or 6 are the only 2 cases that can exist, again that would have been another bottleneck. So there were these 2 bottlenecks that existed in this set. If you would have managed to overcome these 2 bottlenecks, you would have got the answers to this set. Right? So let's look at the fair copy. 5, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 5, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1112, 2213, 3303, 3313 and 3323. Yeah. So we have got it right. So we'll have a look at the solution now, or we'll have a look at the answers now. So what best can be concluded about the number of new cases in L on day 3? So L, day 3, number of new cases is exactly 3. So the correct answer here is option A, exactly 3. Next one, on which days did Pesmisto did not have any new case? So Pesmisto did not have any new case on only one day, which was day 3. So only day 3 was when Pesmisto did not have any new cases. Which of the following statements are necessarily false or is necessarily false? Statement A, there were 2 new cases in T on day 3. So T, day 3, 2 new cases? Not really. So this is definitely false. There were no new cases in P on day 2. So P, day 2, no new cases? No, this is also false. So both these statements are false, necessarily false. So both statement A and statement B are necessarily false in this case. On how many days did L and T have the same number of new cases? So L and T had the same number of new cases. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. They have been mirroring each other all along. So on all 5 days, they had the same number of new cases. What best can be concluded about the total number of new cases in the city on day 2? So day 2, number of new cases in total was 8. So exactly 8 is our answer. So again, this was one question that you could have used to solve this set. So instead of getting into that 5 and 11 bit, if you would have just said that, okay, 6, 7, 8 are the 3 possibilities that exist. Agar ye 6 hai, ye 7 hai, then what can happen? Agar ye 6, 7, this one had to be 5 in that case. And then you would have to look at these 2. So 5, 6, 7 would have given you 18. We had to make 25 in 2 days. Is it possible? Not really, because the maximum that was possible was 11. So again, that could have given you the entire solution as well. So sometimes you can use the data in a question and then figure out as to what needs to be done. Okay. So 6 was definitely not possible. If you look at 7, so day 2 7, day 3 would have been 8 in that case. So 7 plus 8, ye 5 or 6 hota. Let's say ye 11 hota max. Right. So max 11, 7, 8 and 5 or 6. So 11 plus 8, 19 plus 7, 26 plus 6, 32. That still leaves us with 30 or 11 rather, which is not possible. Okay. So 11 plus 8, 19 plus 7, 26 plus 6, 32. मेरे को बनाना है 43. 11 is definitely not possible. So 7 is also not correct. And that's why you could have got 8 as well. And once you could have started this. Okay. So you could have done that as well. But then again, we can of course sit and discuss as much as we can after the test is done. But during the test is a different part. Alright, so those were the sets that I had for today's session. That was basically what I had. The recording will be available afterwards. So what you can do is you can have a look at the solution again. And if there is something, you can definitely put it in the comment section. I'll try to reply to all the comments that we get. Right. So yeah, that was basically the set that we had, the last set that we had. And all right. So I hope all of you are able to get the answers. There is some lag between what I'm doing here and what is being broadcasted. So I'll wait for a couple of seconds so that in case there are any doubts, I can handle those doubts and then we can close the session. For all those of you who are asking how many questions to attempt, what is the percentile to expect, how many mocks to take. So one thing you can do is we did a session a few days back, a couple of days back in fact, which was called 1 month to crack. And there were 3 of us in the session. So Hemang sir was there, Prasad sir was there, and I was there. So all 3 of us were there. So we did that session wherein we discussed what exactly is it that you need to do to solve questions from each section and how to maximize your score and all those things. What should be your strategy over the next 1 month? So do have a look at that session. It's a nice 1.5 hour session. You can just go through the questions that we discussed that day. It was a very fruitful discussion, right? So that was one. The second thing is we are going to have 3 more sessions like these. So one session we were supposed to have it yesterday, but we will be having it next week now. So geometry is that session. If you like the session, do put it. So if you have stayed throughout the recording, and if you are at this point in time, and if you like the session, do put it in the comment section. If you want me to do one more session like this based on DILR, so we'll again do the questions. We'll have another 4 sets, and we'll try to do those sets in another session. So we'll try to do that if you like this. Otherwise, we are planning to do one session on arithmetic. We are planning to do maybe a session on some shortcuts that you can apply for quant questions. Using options, plugging in values, and so on. So those are the sessions that we are planning to do. If you have any requirement as such that you think will benefit, we can do that. There are a lot of exciting things coming up in the month of November. We will let you know soon. I'll do a short video on what to expect in the month of November. And maybe by Monday or Tuesday I will release that video. So that way you will be able to see what exactly is it that we are going to do in the month of November. Alright, so if you have any suggestions, anything that you would like to know about this session, something you didn't understand, do let me know in the comment section. I'll try to involve more sets in these sessions. Okay. How to deal with panic when not able to solve. So there is one small thing that I want to mention here as well. We have mentioned it there. CAT as a test is not meant to show you what you are not able to do. Right? CAT is meant to be a test wherein they have to differentiate between a 99th percentiler, a 98th percentiler, 95th percentiler, 90th percentiler, 80th percentiler, and so on. Right? They have to. There has to be a differentiation between all these categories of people, right? And that's why you will have an easy set for sure. So it is definitely not going to happen that there won't be even one easy set at the CAT. You look at any of the past CAT papers, there will be at least one set which you will be able to make sense of. You might take 20 minutes. Someone else might solve it in 7 minutes. You might take 21 minutes. Perfectly okay. Solve that one set. Right? Because last time if you look at the score versus percentile, one correct set would have taken you very close to 90%. Right? One correct set and maybe 1 or 2 questions here and there would have taken you to that 95th percentile. 2 sets, as I mentioned earlier, would have taken you to 99th percentile. In hindsight, it's not difficult. During the test, because there is a lot of unnecessary pressure on your head to solve certain number of questions, you might end up messing your attempt strategy. But otherwise, one set is definitely on, irrespective of the level of difficulty of the entire section. Right? So that is one thing you have to keep in mind. Okay, all right. So more sets practice. Yeah, so we'll try to accommodate one more LRDI session in the coming month. So next weekend or maybe the weekend after that, we'll try to do one more session, or maybe even during a weekday we might plan to do such a session. I will definitely keep all of you posted as to what we are planning to do. And yeah, I hope the session was enjoyable. I took sets in that order so that we had an easy, a moderate, a difficult set. So the comments also show that progression. So if you can look at the chat replay, you will see people were very excited about the first couple of sets. Then the participation level went down by a bit because the sets, of course, became a bit difficult. Okay, chalo. So all right. Thank you everyone for staying tuned throughout the session. I hope it was helpful to you. And of course, as I promised, we'll be doing more sessions in the coming month. So wish you all the best for the test, and I hope to see more of you in the upcoming sessions. Chalo. All right. Bye everyone.